Ladies and gentlemen, the report we've all been waiting for is finally here, sort of. Attorney General William Barr released Special Counsel Bob Mueller's findings to Congress and the public this morning with some major redactions, but not before taking the time to put his spin on it.
There was relentless speculation in the news media about the president's personal culpability. Yet, as he said from the beginning, there was, in fact, no collusion. The special counsel found no collusion. In other words, there was no evidence of the Trump campaign collusion with the Russian government's hacking.
Did he just say there was no collusion? In addition to the no collusion, no obstruction refrain, the Attorney General also answered long-awaited questions about what the president's seen and whether he's tried to hold anything back.
The president's personal counsel requested and was given the opportunity to read a final version of the redacted report before it was publicly released. No material has been redacted based on executive privilege.
No material redacted is at the request of the president, but a lot was by the AG and his team, including some pages entirely blacked out. But even in redacted form, the report leaves the question of obstruction very much unanswered, despite declarations from the president, his supporters, and his attorney general. And though Barr says he plans to make a largely unredacted copy available to a small bipartisan group in Congress, with only grand jury information kept classified, some Democrats still aren't satisfied, especially House Judiciary Chair Jerry Nadler.
Attorney General Barr appears to have shown an unsettling willingness to undermine his own department in order to protect President Trump. That is why I have formally requested that Special Counsel Mueller testify before the House Judiciary Committee as soon as possible so we can get some answers to these critical questions, because we clearly can't believe what Attorney General Barr tells us.
I'm joined now by Congressman Joe Kennedy, who was a prosecutor himself, by the way, an assistant district attorney on the Cape and in Middlesex County before he first ran for office. Congressman, it's good to see you.
Good to see you. No impeachment proceedings in my time there, though.
What's your, we'll talk about that. What are your primary takeaways from both Barr and Mueller today?
So, not a good day for our country, not a good day for our president, not a good day for this administration. Look, the top lines on this are largely well known, but solidified by this report. One, an adversary of the United States, the Russian government, tried and succeeded at interfering with our election. The officials from a Trump campaign believed that they would benefit from that interference. The President of the United States instructed senior members of his staff on multiple occasions to try to interfere with this investigation. And that the special counsel left the overall determination as to whether the president has obstructed justice unanswered, but said there is certainly credible evidence to believe that he did. And so, much to the contrary of what the Attorney General and the president have said repeatedly, this is still, I think, a wide-open question as to what actually transpired.
It's not a wide-open question with the chair of the Judiciary Committee, that same Jerry Nadler. He said today there's clear evidence of obstruction of justice. Do you agree with him?
I haven't gone through every detail of the report yet, Jim. I've been bouncing around all day. I certainly take Chairman Nadler at his word. I think that there is, from the parts that I have reviewed, the special counsel made it very clear that there were instances that certainly could lead to that conclusion. He was explicit about saying that the special counsel could have cleared the president and chose not to because of the evidence that they were able to collect. That is a major indictment of this administration, and I think means that this, unfortunately, is not over.
You know, one of the most common refrains, both before today and today, from some of your Democratic colleagues is, well, today in particular, is that Barr acted more like the personal attorney of the president rather than Attorney General for the United States. And there's been this demand from your Democratic colleagues and some Republican colleagues, we want the full report. Barr said today, other than grand jury testimony, which he said he is statutorily precluded from giving to leaders in Congress, he's given them everything. So has he not satisfied a major demand of the Democrats in the House?
I think what the Attorney General, the way that he has handled the parts of this process from when he came into office, have unfortunately not been up to the standards that we need to have and need to expect, given the sensitivity of this investigation, of the chief law enforcement official of the United States, not the president's attorney, not a president's cabinet secretary, but somebody that is designed and confirmed to support and defend the laws of the United States. And that means that has to be done with the utmost clarity and integrity for office by characterizing a 4-page letter summary of these findings in a way that I don't think comes anywhere close to an accurate characterization based upon the pages that I have read, to holding a press conference this morning to clearly try to set a narrative around this report before anybody else can read it. I think it starts to lead individuals to ask questions as to whether his intention is to uphold the integrity of that process, or it is to try to spin the American public to believing a certain implication or certain outcome, rather than actually ensuring that our laws are equally or sufficiently enforced.
Let's talk about some of the individuals who are responding. First, the woman you supported for Speaker, Nancy Pelosi, and then the number 3 Democrat, Jim Clyburn. Here they are.
Impeachment is not on the table until it is on the table.
I think that those are things which may not be illegal, but which may be impeachable. If there is something there in this report that is immoral, unethical, I think we ought to take a hard look at that.
So that was Congressman Clyburn yesterday. So let me add a few more. Steny Hoyer, number 2, right in between, says today, based on what we've seen today, going forward on impeachment is not worthwhile at this point. Very frankly, there's an election in 18 months. The American people will make a judgment. But Jerry Nadler says impeachment is one possibility today. It's almost like the guy who couldn't shoot straight. What is the message of the leadership of your party in Congress on the I word?
Look, it's not a gang I don't think that can't shoot straight, Jim. I think it's a reflection of the fact that it's a 450-page report that people are being asked questions about 20 minutes after it comes out. So I think what we are seeing and what I expect going forward is that given the information that has come out today, 1, that members of Congress will review that over the days ahead, 2, that the special counsel, Robert Mueller, needs to come before the American public and testify, answer some of the questions that were not fully addressed in ways that were not addressed in this report.
Barr said he's fine with that, by the way, during the press conference.
Yes, he did. And so I expect that will happen. I don't have a set date yet, but I expect that will happen. I expect that there are legitimate reasons why some information needs to be blocked out and kept secret in the report. But I do think that part of the challenge with the way in which the Attorney General has gone about this, you start to lose the benefit of the doubt when it comes to some of these redactions. I obviously can't characterize why certain things were redacted. I look forward to leaning on some of the additional information that will be gleaned from, I believe it's our so-called Gang of 8, the leaders of the chambers and the relevant intelligence committees, that will get that information to determine whether there's additional information there that the American public ought to know.
But even at this stage, I know you haven't read the whole 448 pages, do you think the president has committed impeachable offenses?
I think there's certainly a chance that he did. And I think, look, the special counsel was very clear on this, that he could have exonerated the president.
He did say that.
In the course of this report, and he chose not to because of the evidence contained therein. And I think that is a big blow to this administration. One of the big reasons why I think people have troubles with the way that the Attorney General has characterized this report is the Attorney General, when the report, his summary letter came out, said that because the special counsel hadn't come to a conclusion, that it was his conclusion to draw. The special counsel is very clear that authority also rests with Congress. The Attorney General seems to have gone through an effort to circumvent or to cut short that review process.
But he can't stop. As of this moment, assuming he complies with his own mandate today, and he gives you everything other than grand jury testimony, and of course he could go to court and ask a judge to give you that as well, but so can Congress. It's in your hands. And it seems to me, the way I read into what Nancy Pelosi is saying, what Steny Hoyer is echoing today, is we're worried about the political consequences for the Democratic Party of impeachment. And I wonder if consider, you said a year and a half ago, something, used the term, does he represent a clear and present danger to the United States? I don't think we're there yet, but I've read every other comment you've made about him. Comments your leaders have made, they are damning, to say the least, but it seems that there is a political calculation. And when you're talking about the Constitution, shouldn't it be, has he committed an impeachable offense or he hasn't? And if the Republicans in the Senate don't vote to convict, so be it. You collectively have to do what the Constitution says you should do.
Agreed. And so what I'm asking for is the time to read the 450-page report, make sure that we fully understand it, get some questions asked by the investigator that led that effort, and at that point, I think you'll see Congress and the American public make a choice. But I do think that it's premature to try to say one is on or off. You saw comments from most of our leaders up there today saying nothing is foreclosed. There's additional information, a lot of additional information that was put forth today that we need a chance to understand, digest, analyze, and we will go forward.
Don't you worry, though, that the public may have moved on? I mentioned it before we went on the air. We had callers on the radio show, Marjorie Egan and I today, smart, thoughtful people, many of whom said, I'm not pro-Trump. In fact, I can't stand the guy. I'm sick of this. I'm sick of the Mueller thing. I have Mueller fatigue. I want my health care fixed.
Yep.
I want fair taxation. I want a decent infrastructure. Enough of this. Move on. Don't you worry that the public has moved on from this, regardless of what this report says when they finish reading it or reading summaries?
Yes. And so, yes, and Congress has to be able to have some dexterity to do both things. But getting back to your point a second ago, Jim, you don't have to be in this job for very long. There's some challenges you choose to dive in on. There's some that you have to fight. And the reality is that if upon review of this information and the testimony from the special counsel and additional information that I hope will be forthcoming from the Attorney General in terms of additional redactions that are made public to at least to members of Congress, if it means that there has to be additional proceedings, then it means that you have to do that. I'm not sure we're quite there yet. I have to read this report. I look forward to getting additional information.
You're not foreclosing voting for impeachment if the merits are there.
No.
Is that what you're saying?
No, I don't think anybody
can we go back to what you said at the beginning? I'm so glad you started the way you started. One of the most troubling parts to me of the coverage today is there was almost no coverage of the fact that there was yet another leader of the United States, even though a close ally of the president, who confirmed that the Russians interfered in our election. Your colleague Jim McGovern was on the radio with us today and said point blank he thinks Hillary Clinton would have won the election were it not for that interference. Have we done anything to ensure that it doesn't happen all over again in 2020?
Not nearly enough, no. And I think that's also part of this, and what I would hope our Republican colleagues would come together on is to say, look, regardless, take the political calculus out of this, let's shore up our democracy. I filed legislation to try to do just that when it comes to Russian interference in our elections and in our democracy, to make sure that some of this, as the federal review has come in, that a lot of that response was stovepiped, to make sure that some of there's additional information sharing across different agencies and to protect that process. We haven't done nearly enough, and people are sounding alarm about that. We need to do more.
We do. Good to see you, Joe Kennedy.
Always.
Congressman,
Thank you.
I really appreciate it. Thanks.